Okay, I'm not sure we've been at a whole minute, but I'm still going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you to the Evergreen Care Monitor training. I'm really excited to be here with you this morning and introduce you to the system. It's an early morning. My name is Lisa Karth. I'm with FEI Systems, and I'm going to be introducing you to Evergreen. Behind the scenes with me, I have Jack Horning. So she is kind of monitoring things and making sure that we don't have any technical difficulties. Leslie, would you like to introduce yourself?
I sure would. Thank you, Lisa. I think a lot of you, maybe all of you, already know me, but just to be on the safe side, I am Leslie Miska. I'm the Information Services Manager at the Office of Aging and Disability Services, and I will be here to support Lisa through the training. If questions come in, I'll be able to help respond to those as we go along, hopefully. And we're really excited to have you here with us this morning.
Absolutely. Thank you, Leslie. Okay, here is our agenda today. And we're going to introduce you to Evergreen. We're going to go through the BI workflow and then talk about the level of care. That's kind of where the beginning of your work begins. We're going to go through the BI application and reconsideration packet, and then the person-centered plan and the service implementation plan. We're going to talk about service authorizations, which you're going to work with, and then the BI classification reclassification packet. We're going to talk about the brain injury assistive technology form. And then lastly, we're going to wrap things up and tell you about next steps. Now, this is a technical training really focused on the functionality associated with Evergreen. It's not addressing your business processes. So I just wanted to put that out there for you. The other thing I want to put out there for you is that you are going to see a lot of stuff today that we know you don't do. And that's very intentional because the background information on how we got to where you will be is important. You may be called upon to support folks. And so for that reason, it's important that you have an understanding of how the system works globally. So with those pieces that you would not normally touch, just sit back, watch, and say, okay, this is good information. Micro learnings are available. Hopefully you've already had a chance to view these. They are a great introduction to Evergreen. We start with the search, which truly introduces you to Evergreen, and it goes through the search process and also just barely introduces the dashboards. There is a video then specific to the dashboards, the user and the person dashboards. And then the person record icon has its very own micro-learning video, because that's where the person's demographic and personal information is. And I keep using the term person. That's the term we use for clients or members in Evergreen. So you're going to hear me say person a lot today. You have a micro learning on the health information. There's a whole bunch of medical information that's collected and stored in Evergreen for reference at any time by anyone who has access. There's the queries and notifications micro learning video, and these are tools that help you manage your work. Now, throughout the day, you're going to hear me refer to notifications quite regularly. Those are the alerts to let you know something's happened and you need to check it out or possibly take action. There's a micro learning specific to forms, letters, and progress notes. And this is capturing the case and care notes. It's adding and editing the forms and the template letter. So these are really the associated with the interactions you have with the person. And then lastly, there is a video on attachments, because attachments can be added to the system in various places, maybe directly to the system or added to a form. So if you haven't checked those out, please do so. If you have already checked them out, please feel free to refer to them at any time. They will always be available for you. This is a listen-only webinar. And so for that reason, you won't be able to talk with me. I also know you're going to have questions. So on your Zoom toolbar, that third icon you have a Q&A icon. If you click on that, that's going to open up the question and answer box so that you can type in your question. And then, excuse me, Leslie will respond to it. Any questions that can't be answered today or aren't answered today, maybe she doesn't get them, maybe it's a question that's better held for another time, you will get the answers to that. So please be assured of that. The other thing I wanted to know, or wanted you to know rather, is we are going to take a number of breaks here, typically shorter breaks, roughly every hour, sometimes maybe a little earlier, sometimes maybe a little bit late. And the reason for so many breaks is that it can get hard to just sit and watch and listen to someone else. And so that opportunity to get up and stretch, take a walk down the hall, can be really beneficial to people. So I want to first talk about Evergreen and how it's organized. Think of Evergreen as an umbrella, and underneath this umbrella, there are two sides to it. One is Evergreen, it's the person record. And this is where a lot of the case management actions occur. The other area under Evergreen is the APS reports. Now, the commonality between these two is that they both share the person record, the demographic information. When you hear us refer to Evergreen, we are talking about the person record, the side of the system that you use. When we're referring to adult protective services, it's typically called APS reports or APS. I just wanted you to be aware of that to avoid any confusion. Now this, I'm going to ask you to take a moment to just read through this. There are a lot of what I call oohs and ahs associated with Evergreen. And the Maine Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the Evergreen team, are really excited to expand the capabilities of Evergreen by implementing the case management features and functionalities. So there are a lot of different things that you are going to have that the system's going to do for you. You know, there's a direct connection with MIMS data, so that financial eligibility is going to display on the person record. And the classification data will flow into Evergreen after it's entered into MIMS. There's that connection. You see the reference to a classification packet. I know that packets are new to you. This is basically bundling forms, which I'll show you about. Notifications, you're going to have no. It's obviously early for my tongue. There's going to be a number of notifications that keep you on track with the work that you have to do. And then your waiver organizations are created from and linked to MIMS. So again, there's that immediate transfer of data and information. And when I say immediate, I mean typically overnight. It's not this particular moment in time. And then there is the ability for the ODES Information Services team, Leslie's team, to edit and add services within Evergreen without waiting for FEI. And to make the changes, the moment Leslie makes those changes in the system, it's available to you. There is no delay on that. Okay, here we have more things for you. There are MIMS rate tables that are going to be used for the PAs or prior authorizations or your service authorizations. And those MIMS rate tables are going to be used instead of Evergreen doing the pricing. So your rate changes is going to be a much smoother process. The excuse me, prior authorization form is going to capture a lot of information. You're going to see that today. Requested units, authorized units. You'll get to see the service line. And one of the cool things I found about the prior authorizations is that as services are authorized, provided, the claim is submitted and processed through MIMS, that utilization shows up in the prior authorization form. And so there's a lot of cool things about that prior authorization. So this is the cycle of managed care or care coordination. I know I referred to case management earlier, and I apologize for that. I will switch my language up and try and catch myself on that. But things basically work the same. You have the information and referral. Somebody reaches out and says, I'm interested in services, or I'm interested in services for a relative. There's the intake process to find out and determine if the person's eligible. And then the assessment and reassessment process. And there's, of course, the initial assessment and then annual reassessments. There's the individual support plan and the prior authorization. This is basically the strategy to provide the person with the services and supports that will help them live their best life possible. And then the prior authorization, again, sometimes referred to as a service authorization, is that agreement that, yes, funding is available for the identified services or supports. From there, of course, the person is going to receive the services and the provider is going to want some payment for it. So that occurs. The payment process is going to be handled outside of Evergreen, but in Evergreen, you will be able to see the utilization. There's the case closure, because at some point, the individual may not need services. They move out of the state, perhaps they passed away, or something else happens in their life. And then there's reporting. It's this one little arrow on here, but really there's reporting that's available throughout this process. And it is very much targeted to your role and what you do, the type of information you need. I want to give you a sense of how Evergreen is set up, because this might help you within your navigation of the system. At the very top of this, we have the organization. And this is Maine Care and other contracted providers, such as Disability Rights Maine. It's basically your parent or top level agency. And then there's also the internal users, such as ODES. With locations, it's where you physically work or where you're dispatched from, because I know some people work remotely nowadays. But this is where you physically work or are dispatched from. And for state folks, this is a district or central office. Then we have the staff, and the staff are the system users. Now, staff are assigned to one or more locations, okay? And that's because you may work in different areas. The staff member is assigned to the person. And as I said, the person is the client or member that needs services and supports. Today, we're going to be using the term persons. You're going to find that in the system. Now, one of the things I want you to know about Evergreen is that the access is role driven. So you have access to what you need to do your job. You're not going to have access to something if it doesn't apply to your job. In training, I have a lot more access than what you will have upon go live. When you go to practice, you're going to have a lot more access than what you have when it comes time for go live. And the reason for that is because it's needed to go through workflows and also to make sure that people can do what they need to. Because in every class, we have multiple roles. Everybody does something a little different. So now I want to tell you about, excuse me, accessing Evergreen. As with any application that you go to, you do need the URL and web address, as well as a username and password. So in the sign-in screen, those two items are mentioned, or input rather, the username or the email. We don't use email. It's a username that you're going to input. And then the password. And once you click login, then you're going to come up to this acknowledgement screen. And you're going to basically acknowledge that you're an authorized user. Now on here, the login screen, occasionally we forget our password. You do have a button here or a link to reset your password. And again, it works like so many other password resets you have to do. In this instance, you will input your email address, and then you'll get an email back with instructions on how to reset your password. Now, just a little public service message on my own behalf. With your training practice, please do not click that link. Please do not reset the password, okay? Because there's lots of people using the same password, and if you change it, everybody's going to get mucked up. Leslie then gets a call. She's going to call me, and I'm going to reset it back. So just please avoid that link for now. All right, so once you get to the login, there are instances people work for multiple organizations in multiple locations, as I mentioned. Well, if that's the case, you have to tell Evergreen what organization you're working under and what location, because it can't guess. And what you select is going to drive what you have access to. Occasionally, staff members work on behalf of someone else. Maybe Jack is on vacation or she's gone out on leave. So I might be assigned to cover her work. And in that instance, I need to select my staff member. Again, in training, you will select this. If you only work for one organization and location, upon go live, you are not going to see this. Okay, you'll go directly into the dashboard. And here's the dashboard. And you can see that this is organized. Front and center are tiles, the announcements, caseload, my tasks, my notes, which is like your sticky notes, and the message inbox, which works much like Outlook. However, I do want to remind you that messages stay within Evergreen, and you can only send and receive messages from other users in Evergreen. We're regularly asked about being able to send messages outside the system or receive them, and that is not possible. And it's again because of privacy. We want to protect the person's information. Up at the top, we have what you may have heard referred to, this white bar, as the top level persistent menu. You're going to hear me refer to it as the navigation header. Now, one of the things in the navigation header is the search option. And within the search, there's a drop down. It defaults to persons, but you have to choose the category of the search you are doing. And then you can type in your search information and press enter. Now then, if you are searching for something else other than persons, I can guarantee at some point you're going to forget to choose the category. I know this because I still do it after having worked in the system for a couple years now. So if you don't get results you're looking for, first thing you do is come up and look at that little box, make sure you have the category correct. Now then, within your search, the results are going to be displayed. And once you have your results, you just click on this and it opens the person record. Now for you all, I want to tell you how you're going to access your person, because everybody has persons who are named just about the same thing. You are going to use, when it comes to search, the advanced search. It's the magnifying glass with the plus in it. And when you open that up, you're going to enter the person's first name, which is for you all going to be Care Coordinator Monitoring. And the last name is going to be person and a number. Okay. So you're going to enter it just like that. And then you're going to click search. Now, when you get that, you may have more than one result that shows up. If that's the case, with this last name column, click on that little arrow and it's going to put things in numerical order for you to make it a little easier for you to find your person. Okay, this is the person record. Notice the navigation header is still here. You have the banner or ribbon with the person's information. And then you have what this screen is, the person dashboard. And again, these are tiles. These, though, are specific to the person. Okay. You also have the left navigation menu. And within the left navigation menu, you'll see there is this icon called record. And I've also referred to this overarching thing as the record. The overarching is the person record. And when I'm talking about something from this record icon, I will always say it's in the record icon. So that means it's right in there. So let me show you what this looks like now in the system. And I'm going to do my login. Now then, you're going to get instructions on how to log in. So you don't have to remember it. It's going to have your username, the password, the URL, just about everything you need. So I am an authorized user, so I acknowledge that. And here I do need to select my organization. And it's always going to be Evergreen Training for while you're in training. There's a choice of only 2 locations. And I'm going to select Baxter, because the only locations that you can select are ones that you have been assigned to and that are in that organization. Evergreen, for everything that you do, it's going to narrow your search results as much as possible. And then staff member itself. For training purposes, it is always self. Now, remember, upon go live, if you work for only one organization or location, you will not see this. And I click login. So here is that home page. There is the navigation header, and I just want to remind you, this Evergreen logo in the upper left always returns you to this page. There is the search that I talked about, the notes here that are like your sticky notes, and then a number of other tools. And in fact, here's the notifications that you will hear me mention at times. And then the dashboard. If you have not done so, please watch the videos about the dashboard, about the search. Now, I want to demonstrate for you how you will do a search for your person. So I'm coming over to the advanced icon, or excuse me, advanced search icon, the magnifying glass with a plus in it. And when I click on that, I'm coming down and I'm typing in the person's first name. And I just chose a random number. Oh, hold on, I might have used the wrong first name. Been working with a lot of different first names here. Care coordinator monitoring. Person 5, and I click search. Here, I only have one result, person 5, so I would click to open this record. Well, today I'm going to work with somebody else. I'm actually going to work with a couple people, but I'm going to start with Paige Patel. So I'm going to return to my home screen because I want to reinforce how I did that Evergreen logo. I'm going to type Paige's name in here. And I'm going to press enter. And here's Paige's record. So I'm going to click to open it up. Here I am in Paige's record. You can see the ribbon or banner with her information on it. And as information becomes available or is added to the system, it will display here. The person ID is assigned by the system, so it cannot be changed. And then the age is based on the date of birth that was already put in. As I mentioned, here is the dashboard, and this information will always be specific to Paige. There's then this left navigation menu and a number of different icons here. I'm not going to go through all of them because they are in your micro-learning. I do want to point out the person record because this is the one you're going to hear me refer to. And in this person record, I'm going to come over here to the right and open up the toggle because I want to see all of the different categories of information. And this allows for easy navigation to different sections. Now, within each section, down at the bottom in the lower left, you have the Add Information button. There's the health information. This is organized by tabs. So once you click on health information, you have to select the tab and the information that you would like to see. History. This is all the domains and information that's been collected about the person, all their background. Progress notes, there are a ton of different types of progress notes, or maybe not a ton, but a number of them. So you can check those out. And then assignments, I do want to show you this because the person has to be assigned to an organization and a location. So when I clicked on assignments, I have a location tab, and this shows me the locations the person is assigned to. If I click on the staff assignments tab, that shows me the staff who are assigned and have access to this record. And then there's the forms icon. We're going to spend a lot of time in this forms icon today. More to come on that. So now I want to introduce you to the brain injury workflow. And it's very similar to what you currently experience. And actually, as that came out of my mouth, Leslie, is that an accurate statement on my part?
Yes.
Perfect. Every once in a while, I find people don't necessarily think so. Anyway, so the person is updated or created. And once that occurs, then you're going to create and complete a level of care. And actually, when I say you, the level of care is created and completed. There's attachments that are uploaded. There's assessment information that's collected in the level of care. And then the eligibility and application packet is completed. And this is based on the level of care and previously completed assessments. And so within that, the offer is made and accepted. And then there's the start and completion of the PCP. So in this, it looks like there's a lot of steps here. There's one, two, three, four for the level of care. They're really going to seem very seamless. There's then, after the PCP is completed, the initial classification packet, and I will show you all about the packets. And that packet then is submitted and approved. The classification, you will be entering it into MIMS. And then once the MIMS is approved, there's the receipt of services. And then you will continue with your annual process. One thing I wanted to mention, I worked in banking for a long, long time, about 25 years. So LOC to me for a long time was line of credit. I've pretty well made the switch to level of care. If by chance line of credit slips out of my mouth, please know I mean level of care. So it took me a long time to make that switch. So here is the level of care. And this is completed by the BI case coordinator before the initial application and classification reclassifications. So within this, forms all start the same way. And it starts by identifying the category, and then within that category, the form, the actual form. And then next is selected, and at that point, the program is selected and the level of care type. Now, the level of care bundles information for you. So it collects the information from the assessments that have been completed outside the system, and it collects the results, but then also it collects the attachments itself. And by doing this, when it comes time to review this level of care, it makes it so much easier to just click in this one form, and it opens up the other information for you. And there's no need to go all around to all sorts of different places. No need to do a lot of searching. So I mentioned that the initial LOC is completed by the BI case coordinator. The change in annual LOCs are created by the BI care monitors. Now, again, I want to remind you that Evergreen has tools such as notifications, such as queries, to remind you about these upcoming tasks, so you don't need to track them manually. So I'm going to now show you the level of care. And remember, mentioned that you were going to, I would be showing you stuff that you would not normally do. Well, here we're going to see the start of this. I'm going to come down. I'm in my record for page. I'm going to come down to this left navigation menu to the forms icon. And here the HCBS choice is already done. I am going to, in this upper left corner, click Add New Form. You're going to find there's a lot of consistency in Evergreen navigation. And when I do that, I need to select the form category. And there's a number of different categories here. A little tip, if you don't find the form in the first category, try another category. I'm going to try application and classification. And that's not where my level of care is. So that's a good illustration. It's not there, and I realized I should have selected assessments. And now I find that level of care, okay? So there's times you may make the wrong selection, just accidentally like I did, or you might not be sure. Just go check another category. It's not a biggie. And then click Next, and I need to identify the program, and I need to identify the type. And this is going to be an initial one, because of course you have to have an initial before you can have an annual or change. And I'm going to click Save. This is what this form looks like. It's very straightforward. So here, okay, I'm not supposed to have that. I'm going to go out of this and come back in. I'm coming down. I did a new search. I'm coming down to my forms. My level of care has already been started. So I'm going to open that up. This is what it's supposed to look like. So underneath the title of the form, you're going to see this always looks the same. There's a place for attachments. There is the status. It's the status that moves the form to the next stage in the workflow. Now, one of the things I want to stress, and you're going to hear me stress it a lot, is that close means the form is dead. I don't need it. It's got a big red void stamp on it, okay? This is not like Word or Excel, where you can close the document, open it back up, and again, be able to just start working on it. Close means you do not need the form. You will not be able to edit it. The only way to get a form back is to then re-add it. There's no way to reopen it. And so submit is going to move this on to the next stage. There are completion requirements to make sure that you have everything that's needed. And you notice that next to these, there's the little red dotted circle. This means that this completion requirement has not yet been met. Now, I also want to show you that to the left of each of these titles, section titles, is a little plus sign. And when I click on that, it tells me specifically what has to be completed. This is particularly helpful with the attachments. Evergreen tells me exactly what attachments have to be added. So I don't have to guess. And then Expand All allows you to see the form in one long page. We only have one section here, so it's not as big, but for something like the person-centered plan, it opens it up and you see the PCP in one very long form. So I'm going to click, I forgot my toggle over here on the right. I'm going to click on this just so I can see the sections in this right menu. Yes, there's only one section. I tend to always open up the toggle because I want to see the the different sections, and it gets me into the habit. I'm going to click on level of care information, and you can see the date. Evergreen knows it's created today, so it's going to put it in there. It already knows the program and the type because those were already selected when creating the form. No need to re-input them. Down here, I have the little pencil icon, and my cursor is a little pointer finger. That indicates I can make edits here. So I'm going to click, and I'm just going to identify the date the assessment was completed, and I'm just going to choose yesterday. And then for these assessments, notice it's only asking me for the outcome. So I'm going to put medically eligible, score 50. I'm inputting a random score, so please ignore it if it doesn't make sense. It's just about completing the form right now. And are the MAPI requirements met? Yes. Notice when I put in the health and safety score, the eligible for main care section 18 level 3 showed up. So I have this filled in. I'm going to click save. I'm going to come to my completion requirements, and that's all done. Cool. Now I just have my attachments. So up here in this upper left corner, I'm going to click on the attachments button. And in the upper left corner, again, consistency. See how everything's in that upper left? I'm going to click on new attachment. I'm going to click on choose file. That opens up my file picker. I'm going to click on my attachment and then click open. And then I have to choose the category of this form. And I'm going to just do the MAPI assessment. I have the effective date range. It defaults to that. I can change it. The end date, I can put that in. Please know it's informational only. It does not do anything in the system. And then I need to put in a short description. You're going to see me use info all the time because you don't want to see me sit there and type a lot of information. I'm going to click save. So here's my first attachment. And again, from here, the ellipsis on the right side, if I click that, there's a number of different options that are available. I do want to point out that edit is not editing the actual attachment. It is editing the information about the attachment. And again, you may not have all of these right now. There's a lot of extra access that I have. I'm going to go to my second attachment because I know there were a number of them. And for me, because I'm in training, I just use the same form all the time. This is my health and safety assessment. I want to close this because I want you to see the completion requirements. My attachments checklist, if I open it up, it shows me what's left to do. And I'm going to add my last attachment. Okay, so now I can close this up. All of the completion requirements have been met. The only thing left to do is to submit this. So I clicked on the status, clicked on submit. I'm asked if I'm sure, and I say yes. And now it's pending review. And this gets reviewed by the BI waiver manager. For our purposes, I'm going to complete it. I know that you won't, but I need to do that today so we can keep going forward in our workflow. So for a minute, I'm that BI waiver manager. I clicked on the status. I click on complete, and I ask if I'm sure, and I continue. And there's no more statuses. So this form is all done. So So that's the level of care form. Now I want to move into the eligibility and application reconsideration packet. Again, you can see this is going to be started the exact same way as the level of care. And we select the category, the form, and then the program. Now, again, who completes this is based on whether it's an initial application reconsideration packet or an annual. And this is the application reconsideration packet once it's opened up. And there's a couple of things on here. You have completion requirements, and it tells you that you have to link the level of care as well as the attachments. Well, when I get into this screen, it's going to show me level of care, and I'm going to use the ellipsis to link the form. And this is going to put all of the information in one place so it can easily be reviewed. It's bundling everything. And so this gets reviewed, and then again, the BI waiver manager completes it, and the person will be deemed medically eligible, not eligible, or a clarification can be requested. So let me show you this in the system. And I'm back at my home page. I want to show you this backwards refresh button. If I click on that, this shows me all of my most recent searches. I can just click on page's name, and it brings me right to the results, so I can click and open this up. I'm coming down to the forms on this lower, on this left navigation menu. You can see my level of care is here and that it's been fully completed. So I'm now going to add a new form. And my category this time is application and classification. That's my category. When I click on form, it's going to give me only the things that make sense. So I click on application reconsideration. I'm going to click on next. And then the program, and then the type. The type, it's only giving me one choice because Evergreen, based on previous selections, knows what I'm doing. And I'm going to save that. And this is your application reconsideration packet. Notice this top bar looks the same or very similar to what the level of care looks like. And I have the attachments here, my status, and again, remember, closed means big red void stamp. Completion requirements again, and when I click on the plus to the right of the forms checklist, it tells me what form. If I do the same for attachments, it tells me what attachments. I have my expand all, and then I also have that right toggle. So you're going to see that I'm just going to start always from the top and work my way down since we're learning. The program application type and the date it's created, we already identified that in Evergreen, so it automatically put that into the system or into the form. I then have the forms checklist. This is telling me level of care needs to be linked because packet, it's bundling things together. Well, yes, it's the level of care, but notice that last modified date, last modified by, the status, all of that stuff is blank. That means that the level of care has not yet been linked. So I'm going to come over here to the ellipsis, the three buttons on the right side, and when I click on that, I get this option to link, and I'm going to click on that. So this brings me up the level of care. Right now, I only have one. At some point, there might be multiple ones. Okay, now when it comes to adding the level of care, I want to make sure that it's completed and that it's active. It's got to be the active level of care that I'm adding. I don't have anything that tells me if this is active. That's where I'm coming to this little table icon. And when I click on that, I have all of these different columns, and I can unselect some so I don't see some of the columns, but I'm actually going to click on active because I want to see what forms are active. And then again, that table icon in the right above the forms, I click on that again, and now I can see the form is active. Okay. Now then, notice I don't have anything I can do except cancel. And if I used that caret to show what's in the drawer, it gives me information, but that's it. I have to click on the level of care because when I click, that's when I get the link button. By clicking on that level of care, I told Evergreen, this is the form that I want to link. If I don't have the link button, that means I didn't select the form. And I click link, and here the form is. So that completion requirement has been met. I'm going to go through and add my attachments again because we want to get this form ready to submit. So Leslie, while I am adding these attachments, is there anything that you would like to share about what we've done so far?
The only thing I'll just say is individuals that are participating may have been a little curious about the level of care form. That is technically a new form for you, that no form such as the level of care exists in EIS. But hopefully, as Lisa was going through, you saw that it was just a form that will allow you to populate the Maximus assessment outcomes and scores into Evergreen so that you can have that information in Evergreen, and it will then be linked up to this application packet, these application packets and classification packets, so that you can have all that data in one system. And I know Lisa shared, but the packets are a new concept for us, but again, hopefully you can see how that helps keep all of the application materials together and classification materials together in the system so that it's easier for care coordinators, yourselves to find all of those details and review all of those details.
Thank you. So I have my 4 attachments on here. I'm going to close this up. I'm going to check my completion requirements. It's all done. So very cool. And so I don't have anything else left to do on this. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to submit this. And I'm going to input information. Anything with the red asterisks, I have to fill out. I can't save the screen unless it's filled out. Okay, and the status is now pending review. And this is done by the BI waiver manager. I know that you will not typically do this, but I'm still going to let you see it. I also still have to do it so I can go to the next stage in the workflow. So again, I have that BI waiver manager hat on. And when I click on this, there's the comment that I just input. I'm going to tell Evergreen I'm starting the review and click continue. Now, here's where you get to see the really cool stuff about the packets. There's the application packet information. Here's my forms checklist. I can click on that and it opened up my level of care form so I can easily see the information. and access the attachments in the level of care. I'm going to go back, and again, you can see I have 4 attachments. As a BI waiver manager, I can go in and I can look at all of these attachments by going to the ellipsis and going to view, or I can download them. So there's no needing to go to all these different places. And this person's going to be medically eligible. And I identified the priority and saved this. Okay. And so now the status is medically eligible. All right. What I think we're going to do is let's take a 5-minute break right now, because when we get into the PCP, there's going to be a lot to do. And it's not going to be good if we break it up in the middle. So synchronize your watches. We'll start again in 5 minutes with the PCP.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yes. Okay, we're going to get started. Please excuse me. I was at the beach last week and I've come back with a nasty cough. We're going to get started with the PCP and the Service Implementation Plan, known as the SIP. I know, being on a webinar, it is so easy to start multitasking. Been there, done that. I am going to ask that for this next section, as we go through the PCP and the SIP, that you do not multitask. And the reason for that is there are a lot of moving pieces to this. And if you get questions on it, you want to have a sense of what's going on. For me, what I sometimes have to do is literally like cross my arms in front of me so I don't touch my computer. But for now, just please, I ask that you avoid all multitasking. So the person-centered plan. Now, one of the great things about the system is that there's situations or instances where you're going to input information, and that information is automatically populated into fields in different parts of the form. This eliminates the need for you to retype information. And let's face it, there's a couple of different people who might add information. So again, you don't have to go searching for it. You don't have to retype it. Evergreen's going to do that work for you. Now, our application reconsideration packet has been completed and the status is medically eligible. So the next form to fill out is the PCP. The PCPs do require that the person is assigned to a location and a staff member. And the assignments provide the accountability to ensure the person moves through the workflow. The staff assignment also gives the staff member access to all of the information they need to be able to support the person. And you can see here the different steps. The BI case coordinator assigns the location and staff. The PCP is started. The care coordinator completes the state review. Most of the PCP has been done, and you'll see that soon. And then once the PCP is done and approved, it's then linked to the reclassification packet. So you're going to see this in action. So here are the assignments. I mentioned them earlier. On the left navigation menu, there is the icon for the assignments. There's the location assignment tab, and then the staff assignment tab. Evergreen is not going to let somebody do a PCP if they have not been assigned to the person. When it comes to starting a PCP, it's the same as the other forms. So the left navigation menu forms, we selected the category and the form. And again, we have to select the program and the PCP type. Now, as we go through the PCP, you're going to see a lot of different messages and tips and tools. One of them at the very top is what's called ghost text. Ghost text. It's hard to see in this picture or screenshot, but underneath the screen name, that text is a lighter gray. And that's what's called ghost text. It's guidance on what to input. And then that same information is available in the light bulb, which is next to the field name. There's then going to be message boxes. Please make sure you read them because they provide guidance. They provide valuable information to you. I do want to point out the message in pink. These are the error messages. And one of the cool things about Evergreen is that it tells you exactly what needs to be done to correct it. I don't know about you, but there's things I filled out at times if I'm ordering something online and there was a required field, something's not going through and I can't figure out what it was. No needing to guess, no needing to do lots of different scrolling. Evergreen is going to tell you what the issue is. And then in the person-centered plan, you're going to find that there's person-centered thinking tools. And these are just available tools that might help guide the conversation or identify information to be collected. So the person-centered plan, most of your forms start out with a status in progress. The person-centered plan starts with a status of pending state, excuse me, I jumped ahead here. Pending state review. So the PCP is started, it gets completed, and pending state review is when
Sorry,
you
Lisa,
would come into play.
I'm going to cut you off. It actually starts in pending planning team meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is a little confusing here. So where it says start the PCP and the status is pending state review, it's not pending state review. It's pending planning team meeting. Something similar. It goes to pending state review when the PCP's been filled out and it's ready to come to you for its review. So this jumps ahead.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you as well. So let's move on from that one. Within the PCP, there is this very cool add information button, and one can add history, add a contact, or add attachments. And the reason this is so cool is because sometimes you have to add this information to the PCP. Maybe Paige shares something new or something that just happened that needs to go into the history. Well, now you don't have to go out of the PCP into the history, add the information, go back out of the history and back into the PCP. You can do it from here. And then it's just a matter of syncing the information. And then that way it's in the history, it's in the PCP, everything's good. So Evergreen is going to help you make things easier for you. So let me show you what this looks like. So I am in Paige Patel, and I'm going to come down to forms. I may need to log in and I do. Okay. So let me search for Paige again. And I'm coming down to forms on the left navigation menu. I do not have a PCP, but I can see the application reconsideration packet is medically eligible. The level of care has been completed. Now, should you be saying, well, wait, how do I know when a PCP can be done? Evergreen's going to tell you because you're going to get a notification. So in this upper left corner, I'm going to again click New Form to add the new form. My category this time is Case, Care, Plans, and Forms. And the form type, I'm scrolling down to find Person-Centered Plan. And I'm going to click Next on that. I need to choose my program. Oops, that's the wrong program. Medicare Section 18. The type, I only have the choice of initial because you have to have an initial one before anything else. The dates, I'm going to keep things simple and just use today's date. Now notice the end date automatically filled in for me. I can change this date if I would like to do so. And once I have my dates in, I click Save. Here's one of those nifty error messages. Evergreen has guardrails to keep me from making mistakes. And it's telling me the end date cannot be greater than 1 year after the effective date. So Evergreen took the effective date and automatically made the end date 1 year later. You can shorten that end date if you would like. However, it's not necessary. That's up to you. And then you click Save. Okay, and this is the, excuse me, PCP. Notice there's two tabs here. One is the PCP. The other is SIP, the Service Implementation Plan. And we're going to come to that in just a bit. When it comes to the PCP, it can be considered like a paper form. And for that reason, you have to tell Evergreen that you want to make changes to it. So you have to engage that edit mode. Now, there will be times you're going to try to enter something into the PCP and you're not going to be able to. And the first place that people go to when a system is new and they can't do something is it's broken. And again, I know that because I've done that, I've said that. It's not broken. It's a matter that there's something missing or you didn't do something. And a lot of times with forms, it's this edit mode. So if you can't do something, you're going to sit back, take a deep breath, let it out, and then read your screen. And really read it, and the answer will come to you. If it doesn't, take a moment to get up, go take a brief walk to the restroom, down the hall, whatever. When you come back, again, read your screen. All of those actions, they loosen up and get some blood flowing in your brain. So then I have the print function, and this is a custom print. You can see the different options here. There's the add information buttons I told you about. Here's that status, pending planning team meeting. And again, when the PCP is done, it gets submitted for state review, which is when it comes to you. The PCP can also be closed. Again, that's that big red void stamp. The form can be open to expand all, and it makes it one long, long, long form. I'm not going to scroll all the way down to the end. And then I have my toggle on the right side. So again, I can see the different sections of the PCP. Now, one of the things that I want to point out to you is that there is the section name that's on the far left justified. Indented are subsections. And the subsections start, the person profile, for example, it starts with the person profile, person-centered thinking tools. Pretty cool. Well, when we come to the next section, exploration and discovery, The first subtopic, exploration and discovery, person-centered thinking tools. So there is that consistency. The tools are there right at the top of the section. My life planning. Again, there's more thinking tools. Okay, so I'm going to just briefly show you this. The overview, oops, I almost forgot my edit mode. This, when it started, the dates came from what was input when I started the form. I can change them again. I just can't go beyond a year. The case manager, my name right now is BI Care Coordinator Staff 1. And I can scroll down. Now, for detailed information and examples to assist in completing the person-centered plan, please refer to the PCP manual located in the Help Center. Well, the Help Center is up in the navigation header on the far right. And once I click on Help, Help Center is the very first item. Down here at the bottom, I have Save. Save is going to save the information that's been input in the screen. That is helpful because there's going to be times that the staff members going in and out of the PCP. You know, maybe Paige needs to take a bathroom break or something. And it's going to take her a long time. And that's based on my grandmother. You know, or something else. Maybe time is up for the meeting and there's going to be another meeting on it. So save allows you to save what's been done. Save and next saves the information on the screen and takes you to the next one. So that's saving you a click. Now these carrots, there's the next one and the back one. If you use this to navigate and there is a save and next, nothing's being saved. So there are times you will only have this, and that's cool. But if there's a save or a save and next, those are the ones you want to use. So here are the thinking tools, and these are downloadable. Some of them are links. You can check those out. And then here is the form. I'm down in the personal profile about me section. And we have talked about red asterisks. Those are required fields. Those fields are required to save information on the screen. This exclamation mark is required by the form. And this is the type of thing, I may only have this, the answer to this question. I can save this. Oh. This is telling me I have a required to save field. I have a red asterisk field. And it's all the way down here at the bottom. But at this point, I can go out and come back in. And actually, with Paige Patel, it's time for me to move on to another meeting, and she has a doctor's appointment. So we're going to fast forward, and I'm going to move to another person. And the reason I'm doing this is this next person, I have most of the PCP filled out. So opening page done. Paige happened to be a popular name that year. And I'm coming down to my forms and plans. And here I have my person-centered plan and it's pending planning team meeting. I can only have one in progress, or in the case of PCP, one pending planning team meeting, PCP at a time. I'm going to open up my right menu. I'm going to engage my toggle. And I'm just going to kind of click through this so you can see. We saw the tools that are here. The About Me, which is under Personal Profile. I completed all of the questions with the exclamation mark. So there is now a green check mark indicating they are completed. I filled in this best ways to support me has the exclamation mark and the asterisk. The asterisk and that orange bar means I have to fill that in to save what's on the screen. And I can click save and next. My life today, I'm just moving down the right menu. I've taken the time and I completed all of that with this page. I'm moving now into exploration and discovery. And again, there's more thinking tools. This one, life domain vision tool, happens to be a link. So there's different ways you can access these tools. I'm now down to getting the life I want. And I did fill this part in as well. I believe I did. Let me double check. Okay. Getting the life I want, there are 8 domains. And for each of the 8 domains, there are 3 questions to answer. One is, what's important to me? So for Paige, what is important to her? That gets answered. The second question is, what do I want to stay the same or maintain? That question generates a goal. The third question is what I want to be different. What do I want to either add, change, or stop? That question also becomes a goal. So 8 domains, 2 questions for each domain that generate a goal means that there would be 16 goals. In just a moment, I will tell you about how I completed that, how I adjusted to that. Because there's not always going to be 16 goals to work with, and we're not going to force that. So other agenda items, there is an established agenda for the PCP meetings. And so this is to identify, is there anything else Paige would like talked about? And in this instance, we're going to say no. Okay. I had to look and see how much further I should go. The meeting information. This is filled in after the meeting occurs. It's all the questions are past tense. It's a check-in with Paige. So I'm going to come back and fill that in because the meeting hasn't occurred yet. The PCP facilitator is not required because if the person facilitates their own meeting, there may not be a PCP facilitator to add. This is used if they did not fully facilitate their own meeting. So I'm going to enter the meeting time, information, and location. And a cool thing with this meeting information is that once I enter it, it automatically populates the appointments and it populates the schedule tile in the dashboard. My meeting time, I'm just going to make it today. I'm going to make it, I have to have AM or PM. There's my meeting location. And did I, Paige, agree? I'm going to say yes. I can add follow-up information if I wanted to. Now I'm going to leave this for just a moment so you can see in the appointments, here is my person-centered plan meeting that I just added to the system. So it's there for anyone who would like to see it. On the dashboard, it's also listed. Now it happens to be today, which is why it's automatically displayed. If I had scheduled it for the 28th, and I clicked on the date for the 28th, it would display there. I'm going to go back into my PCP. Let's engage that toggle. I'm going to come down to natural supporters and allies. This comes from the contacts, and this is used to identify, did these folks attend the meeting? Well, here I have Jules Dunn, who is the power of attorney and emergency contact. In just a moment, I'll be identifying, did she attend? James Knox is the her doctor. And I'm going to say right from the outset, I know that he did not attend. So I clicked to engage. And I'm going to say no. Now, Paige also has a guardian who I need to get into this form. This is where I come up and I'm going to click on the add information and I click on add contact. And that guardian is Max Dunn. The relationship. When it comes to the relationship, child is here. And there's also the option of son. So if we're talking about in daughters for just a minute, I'm my mother's child, but I am also her daughter. On these items, child is referring to a young child, one who won't have any responsibility. Son or daughter is selected for the adult children who support the individual. And I'm just going to identify all the things he does. Full guardian. I need for him, there's that address or asterisk rather. I need to add his address. So I clicked on the link. If he lived with Paige, I could just identify that and the address would pre-fill. He does not. I had to identify the type of address. I need to type in the address. And I'm focusing today on required fields. Now on the town, look at this. This is so cool. I typed this in, start typing, and the system is going to limit my selections. And this is Max's primary address. I have to add his phone number, so I click add phone. His type is a mobile phone. It is his primary phone number, best way to reach him. Text phone, again, watch the videos about the person to learn more about that. Okay, so he's not yet displayed. I'm going to turn off this edit mode for a moment, and then I'm going to turn it back on. And let's see if he is there. He is not. Hold on, I think I did something wrong. He did not display there because I didn't identify him as a natural support. Okay. So when I come back down here to my form, I open up the PCP, engage that edit mode. I'm coming down to my natural supporters. There's Paige, James. Okay, I'm going to have to research why Max did not show up there. But you did have the opportunity to see how to add a contact. We need to identify Paige's vision for a good life. And now we're coming down to my life planning, and we're at the thinking tools. I want to come back to the PCP, or excuse me, to the PowerPoint, because I want to talk about this before I start showing you that section. So this is the My Life Planning and the PCP completion. My Life Planning has the moving pieces where you're connecting things together. There's the goals, and those come from getting the life I want. Those 3 questions I mentioned. And there's 16 goals that are initially loaded. Ones that are not going to be used or addressed in this PCP are deleted. There's the services and supports. And these are what is going to help the person meet their goals. And then we also are identifying the needs. And the needs are manually entered. Their initial status is going to be unmet. And they're going to be updated at the team meeting based on services and supports identified. And Leslie, when we come to that, you do a much better job than I do of explaining that unmet. So I'm going to ask you to do the same again.
No problem.
And then the domains, there's strengths and barriers. We add those as needed as well. So back to my PCP. I'm going to start down here at services and supports, actually. And I have the button services and supports. I'm going to click add service or support. And there's a number of different options here. I'm going to first add a community and natural support. And the supporter is going to be Jules Dunn. She's going to provide transportation. And you'll fill in the other information. I'm sticking with the required fields, and I'm going to click save. Well, that's great, but there's another service and support that's needed. So I'm going to click on add service and support. And in the drop down, this time I'm going to select waiver service. Notice the fields all look different here. Now, when it comes to provider, you can't tell, I'm trying to click there. I can't do anything with that field right now. The service, I can't type into this field. I need to click search because there's lots of different searches or services, excuse me. So I'm going to do input my search information and then click search. And you may have a lot more services to select from. I only have one. So this is indeed the service I wanted. I'm going to click this link button over on the right. And that adds the service to the service and support screen. The rate unit amount and rate unit type defaulted based on what's already in the system. The dates defaulted based on the PCP dates. The frequency, it's required, but if I use that drop down, it gives me the options. And then I identify the hours per week or invoice amount. And then I also just select the scope. Now, the the box means that I can select one or multiple things. The support that's needed, I need to identify the level. Is any of the support being identified in a non-disability setting? And if I have questions, there's the little it tells me what is being answered. Service providers, this isn't required, so I'm going to hold off on this. Click this. I have my services and supports entered. I'm going to work my way up to goals. So next comes barriers. Well, I already entered a barrier. I click the add barrier button. And here's where I would add a barrier name. And I would put in the description. I'm going to cancel that for now. The strengths, I would do the same thing. I would use this button to add all the strengths that apply. I did this in advance so that you wouldn't need to see me retype everything. Okay, here is needs. And I entered 2 of them. And to enter them, I used this add need button. And I completed this. The status defaults to unmet. Well, I need to make some changes to this. So I have my little pencil icon. I can edit. So I'm going to click to open this up. So it's already filled in. The status is unmet. I want to change it to met. So that means, and you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, Leslie, that this need is met by an identified service or support, an identified paid service or support. Is that correct?
Doesn't need to be paid. So as long as there is a service or support in this plan that will meet that need, then you would update the status to met. But if there is no identified service or support, then you would leave it at unmet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then the source of this, it's being added through the person-centered plan, who, and the date. So I want to do the same with my second need here. And this one was already identified as met. Now I'm going to skip goal review and I'm going to come up to goals. Now on here, I had mentioned that there are 16 goals that are generated from the PCP. So in my goals, there would be 16 goals listed. I already went through and noticed that when my cursor is in a goal and I have that pointer finger, well, if I scroll, I have a pencil icon so I can edit the goal or I can delete it. Now, just a little tip for you. Delete. If I click on this, I have to scroll down and I have, am I sure I want to delete it? I cannot undo this action. And I would click continue. I don't want to do that. I want to keep my goal, so I'm going to cancel it. But what I want you to see is that I clicked that trash can. I have my question, but if I click on my trash can again, I no longer have that question about deleting the goal. So basically, 2 clicks on the trash can negate the action. It undoes the action. So if anybody ever asks, I'm clicking on the trash can, I'm not getting that message to delete. They're clicking too many times. I'm going to click to just open this up. And I'm going to start at the top, my desired outcome. Now, the domains are listed here. And I can select one or multiple, and I just click on it, and that's going to engage the caret that moves the domain from available to selected. And I'm going to scroll down here. The target date for my goal defaulted to 12/13/2024. I can change that if I would like to. Next is strengths. And these are the strengths that are available, that I've already identified. Well, remember, with the goal, we're putting all the pieces together. So what strengths apply to this goal? I'm going to say both of them this time. Barriers. Again, do any of the barriers apply to this goal? Risks, I did not input. Now, needs, my needs is required. Every goal has to have a need. Okay, so that's one thing. Every goal has to have at least one need. Now, the other thing is all needs have to be associated with a goal. So it seems pretty straightforward. Between these two needs, both of them have to be associated with at least one goal. When there are a lot of needs, people sometimes get confused and they don't always have a need associated with the goal. So if somebody's having difficulties with the needs, it's like, go back and check. Are all of your needs associated with the goal? And I'm just going to move this first one over. And the services and supports, I'm just going to do the home residential this time. I need to add my key milestone. The date for completing the milestone, the start date defaults. I need to enter my end date. Now, services and supports, there's only one listed. I had to enter a services and supports. I had to select one up here. Why do I have to do it again? Well, if you notice, there's this box around the milestone. Within this, you are selecting the service and support that applies to this milestone. So again, I check the box. I have the caret, so I move things over. I have my goal. It's identified as new. And I no longer need this when, and I click save. So if you saw, the services and supports was linked to the goal. Barriers, linked to the goal. Strengths, linked to the goal. Needs must be linked to the goal. And now I have one more goal, so I'm going to do that goal. My desired outcome. I'm making my random selections. My strengths, I'm just going to move one. I am going to move the barrier over. That applies. The needs, in this instance, both needs apply. The services and supports, again, this time, they both apply. I need to add my milestone. I need to add my end date. And then again, I need to select which of the services and supports for this goal, which applies to this milestone. And I'm going to say both. There are times there's going to be more than one milestone. Well, that's why you have this little plus button here over to the right side. When I click on that, this gives me another milestone that I can add. If I add another milestone, I have to fill this in. I don't want to today, so I'm going to delete that. Okay, so I've done all of this. I can now come down to goal review. And I'm going to put in the satisfaction, how is Ruby feeling about things? And when is there going to be check-ins? And then, because we're getting ready to submit this to you, and so we're wrapping up our planning team meeting. I'm going to come back up here to meeting information because Paige needs to say, did she participate? And it's just a recap to make sure her needs met. Okay, I have all of this filled in, and now again, looking at the right menu, I've worked my way all the way down the change in waiver services. That I'm going to ignore for now. But now it's time for the state review. This is where you come into play. So up here in the status, I'm going to identify, use the drop down to say submit for state review. And it's going to ask if I'm sure, because once I send it to you, I can't get it back. I'm going to say continue. And here's where you are going to open up the PCP. You're going to click the edit mode. And you're going to review all the different sections of the PCP. And particularly, you're going to pay attention to my life planning, the goals, needs, the strengths. We have an unmet need there. The strengths, the barriers, and then the services and supports. Now, here is where under state review, you have to fill this part in. And here's where you say, yes, you are approving it. And the approval date defaults. You can also say no, that you don't approve it, at which point it's going to go back to, help me out with the role, Leslie, the BI care coordinator?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I apologize. I'm getting lost in all the roles at times.
You're doing great.
It's going to go back to the BI care coordinator. They're going to make the necessary edits. And please, if you do say no, input why so they know what the issue is. For us, it looked good. So I'm going to click save and next. The medication review, I don't do that. So I, as the reviewer, have done my part. I'm going to update this to submit for provider selection. And I'm going to actually, before I do that, I want to show you the SIP tab. Okay, actually, I'm going to submit this for provider selection. And now the provider can be selected. I go down to, because this is now back with the BI care coordinator. The provider provides services. So that's where I'm going to come back to services and supports. Well, here our first one is a community and natural resources. There's not a provider involved in this. The waiver service does have a provider. I wasn't able to identify one. I'm still not going to identify one. I'm going to come down here to the very bottom and service implementation plan provider invitations. Providers are invited to submit service implementation plans if they would like to. It's basically, how are they going to support page? Well, I need to identify the provider. So I clicked the add provider. I'm going to do a search for my provider, and I happen to know it's Baxter. Here's Baxter. Excuse me. Has all the information. I have this button to link, or I can open the record on Baxter. I want to select link. I can add an additional provider if I wanted to. We're keeping things simple. So I'm going to save. And with that, the provider then, the provider location was assigned to the person, and the provider.
Sorry, Lisa, I'm going to cut you off. They have not been assigned to the person record yet, but they have been invited to submit the service implementation plan. So they get a notification, but they still can't access the person record yet. They access that service implementation plan from their location profile and fill it out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So again, they are not fully selected yet. They are not assigned under the assignments.
Correct. Yeah. But they'll get the notification. The system automatically generated this SIP form when you invited them, and they'll get the notification. They'll have an account in the system, and they'll get the notification, and then they'll be able to populate the form and submit it for the care coordinator to review with the person.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You bet.
And before we go into the SIP, I want to again, let's take, I'll give you a 10-minute break right now, and we'll come back with the SIP and finishing up the PCP.
Awesome, thanks.
And Leslie, when we start up again, I'm going to invite you to share any comments or information you'd like to.
Sure. Lisa? I don't know if it's just me, but I'm not hearing you at all.
Oh, no, it was not just you. Thank you so much.
That's okay. I saw that you, the screen came back up, but I thought you might just be waiting for people to rejoin. And then I saw the slide move, and I was like, no, I think she's talking to us.
Yeah, that was me. I'm so sorry. I blocked it off so you wouldn't see what I was doing during the break, and I get too distracted. All right, back to your review. So the PCP was filled out during the planning team. Well, first in advance, then there was the planning team meeting. You know, all of the goals, the needs, the strengths, the barriers, the services and supports were identified and finalized, at which point the status was updated and this was submitted for state review. You did your review, and once you did that, and in the PCP, you said, yes, it looks good, you updated the status to submit for provider selection. Now then, so this went back to the BI care coordinator. I talked with Ruby and identified providers that Ruby might be interested in, or actually the one provider Ruby might be interested in. And at the very bottom of the service and support screen, I identified Baxter provider is going to be invited to submit a SIP. At this point, the SIP tab is populated. Your state review is completed. The provider's getting their notification. Hey, this is out there for you. And they are going to access their location profile. They don't have any access to the person record, to personal details on the PCP. You know, they've not been assigned to the person yet, so they should not have those details.
I will come in just to say, Lisa, that the SIP form itself will display some of the PCP details that are relevant and necessary for them to be able to complete their service implementation plan. So they don't have access to the full PCP, but they will have access to the data that they need in order to submit their service implementation plan.
Thank you.
Yep.
Now, within each service, it gets a separate line on the SIP, and providers will only see their SIPs. So if somebody is not invited to submit a SIP, they will not see that service line. And the care coordinator is notified after the provider's done their SIP, and they get to talk. They will talk with Ruby, or excuse me, Ruby was yesterday. Today I'm working with Paige. Talk with Paige, and then identify who the provider will be. So within the SIP, this is what it looks like, what the provider will see. Now, the goals and the service details, they come from the PCP, so the provider can't edit them. At the bottom of this, there's the service implementation details. This is where they would identify how they would support the person. And at the very, very bottom, they have this checkbox where they have to say, yes, this is what I would provide. So let me show you the SIP. So I'm in the SIP. The provider is going to access this from their location profile. For you, I just want you to see how the SIP works, okay? So you're just kind of watching, learning. You get to see what someone else does. So I'm going to click on this to open it up. Excuse me. Again, in the SIP tab, it looks very similar to what you've seen on your other forms. I'm going to engage my right toggle for the different sections. The status is currently in progress, and for the providers, just like with everyone else, close is that big red void stamp. When they are done with the SIP, they are going to submit it for review, which sends it back to the care coordinator. I'm going to engage my edit mode. And here there's information available here. Now down at the bottom, there's a paper SIP that's available. We're going to kind of gloss over that with the providers because we want them to do the SIP electronically in the system. Should they decide to do a paper PCP or a paper SIP, excuse me, they're going to add it as an attachment. Well, the SIP information still has to be added into this form in the PCP. The attachment alone is not enough. Guess who gets to add it? Yes, the care coordinator. And so we don't want the care coordinator to have the extra work. We also don't want to risk something being lost in translation. And so we really want the provider to do this electronically. And here's information from the goal. And you can see my cursor, even though I'm in edit mode, I do not have that pointer finger. I cannot make any changes to this as the provider. So I would just scroll down and check all of this out. And I'm going to keep scrolling because I want to make sure there's nothing for me to fill out at the end of this. I have learned that sometimes I don't scroll down enough. Okay, so nothing for me to fill out here. So I'm going to use that right pointing caret to go to the next screen. And here's the SIP details. There's some instructions here for the provider, the service, and then here's where they're going to identify the purpose of support and how they are going to do this. So I'm going to identify the purpose of skill support. I have that ghost text and that light bulb to help me as a provider identify what to put in. And I'm going to click save. Scrolling down, I now have a goal. I have to identify information specific to this goal. And who's going to help her achieve this goal? Who's going to track? And how often are things going to be tracked and reviewed? And then how is this going to help out the person? And then there's the add implementation strategy. That's optional. So I'm going to leave that for now, and I'm going to click save. And I'm going to scroll down. I have more questions. So again, this is the second goal. And I'm just going to identify the fields. Again, my implementation strategy not required, so I'm going to click save. And I am going to check this box that signifies I'm agreeing to this and save it. I have completion requirements, so I'm going to come up and I want to check these. Well, I've gotten to the bottom of the form, but there's something that's not completed. So I click on that plus button, and it's the service implementation plan details. So I'm going to come up here to the service implementation plan details. I do need this implementation strategy. Specifically, what am I going to do for the person? So we don't want there to be any questions. Completion requirements have now been met. And so with this, I'm going to submit this for review. It's going back to the care coordinator who is going to take back over. So new hat, care coordinator, got a notification. I'm coming back in as that care coordinator to the PCP. I'm going to open up my edit mode. Here, the status is pending provider selection. Here, I take a look at the SIP and I'm going to talk with Paige about it. Does this look good? Are you happy with this provider? She's going to say, yes, I love this. And so this plan, I'm going to approve it. And I say continue. Okay. I've just approved the SIP plan. And the status is now plan implemented. I need to come back to the PCP tab because I'm not done yet. Notice now I have completion requirements. I have a lot of stuff that's not done on here. And with this done, I'm going to basically talk about the rights, supports, and modifications, because I know that you all won't do it. I want to make sure that you have a basic understanding of how it works. Because after this is done, there is, under the rights, supports, and modifications, the first section is the active plans and addendums. And so anything that has been completed up to this point, or excuse me, let me rephrase that. If there is a positive support plan or a safety device approval packet, etc., already in place, that would be displayed here. There is not at this time, so it's not displayed. If there are ones completed before the next PCP, they would be displayed here. I don't have anything to fill in. The HCBS rights modification, here is where it's added. And I would just click on that button. I'm going to make a selection to complete this. Does this justification need for an HCBS modification include dangerous or maladaptive behavior? And I'm going to answer no to this. If I said yes, it means a different form should be used, a BMP. And I would not be able to select my provider. So I always want to select no on this. And I'm going to click save. I could add another one if I wanted to. Here's then where I would select the provider. And that information is identified. And moving down, there's then the meeting narrative. Now, here's a check-in with Paige. There's a survey. What did she think? Okay, and then there's meeting signatures. And so I clicked, because I have my pencil icon, to engage it. I'm going to identify the signature type, and I can do written, e-signature, verbal consent, or consent received via other means. I'm going to do e-signature. I love this. So when I do that, I get this field and I use my mouse to just put in the signature. And then I'm going to put in the person's name and save this. And scrolling down, I would then have the case manager signature to input, as well as the guardian. Now, after that, there's the SIP person survey. How does the person feel about the SIP? So it's checking in with them. And again, it's completing that, then doing the save and next. Then there's the case manager attestation. And lastly, the plan signatures. And you can see from this right menu, I'm getting down to the very bottom. And once the plan signatures are in place and all of the completion requirements have been met, at that point, I would click complete plan. You all won't do a lot of the actions in the PCP, so I'm not going to have you sit and watch while I fill out the things that are not complete, okay? So that's why I'm cheating a little bit. I just gave you a sense of what happens after the My Life planning and the SIP is completed. So, Leslie, is there anything you would like to add on this process before we go to the prior authorization?
Yeah, I'll just Lisa showed you all the sections, briefly all the sections of the plan. Some of those sections that are after My Life planning truly would have been filled out during the planning team meeting, even though they come in order after that My Life planning section. The planning team would actually fill out the right supports and modifications section, and they might even complete the meeting summary portion of that during the meeting. And the only other thing that I would just say is the process that you're currently following um, is very similar in Evergreen. It's just the forms look a little bit different than the EIS forms because the forms are um, much more technologically advanced. They allow for data to display from other areas of the site. They allow data that's captured, like the PCP, for example, allows data that's captured at the top of the form to then populate pick lists at the bottom of the form. It allows you to actually associate different pieces of data together, where the EIS forms are just much more flat. And so you have to manually replicate data in those forms, or the care coordinator needs to, in order for those linkages to work in EIS. So not any major changes here in the current process. Just the forms look a little bit different and they work a little bit differently.
Thank you. Yeah, and people will have to be patient with themselves as they learn this. You will want to be patient and give yourself that permission to take the time to learn it as well. So I want to transition to the prior authorizations now, which are the service authorizations. So the PCP status is plan completed. The prior authorizations is automatically generated from the PCP and the SIP, which I think is so cool. The system's doing it for you. And within this, you're going to receive the notification that this is out there waiting for you. Again, no guessing. Evergreen's going to tell you. You're going to open it up and you're going to check this out. Within this prior authorization, or each one is for a different service. So you might have 5 prior authorizations. Each one is for a different service. There will never be 2 services on a prior authorization. Now, this is reviewed and the status is updated, ideally to approve by you. You're then going to enter the information into MIMS. MIMS is going to in turn approve it. This happens through a nightly cycle.
Yeah, sorry if we said they're not gonna directly enter this information into MIMS. It's gonna flow over automatically into MIMS.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just classification data. That's all they have to manually enter. The PAs will flow over automatically.
Okay. MIMS will approve this. The services can now be delivered. Okay. And with this, services are now authorized. Every once in a while, I get a question from a provider, can we start offering services earlier? And the answer is no. There has to be this fully approved prior authorization in place. So there's 4 sections to this prior authorization. There's the overview section, which is just going to tell you a little bit about the service itself. There is the provider information, the original request for the services, and then lastly, the service information, the service line. Now, your service lines can be single or expanded. The single prior authorization services are provided anytime during this particular time frame. This is when all of the services are provided. In some instances, the services are broken up. So they are delivered during the first part of the year and maybe the last part of the year. And in that instance, you see 2 different service lines with the different dates. Hence, that's why it's called expanded. Now, the care monitor. The service information is automatically populated. There's requested costs. This came from the PCP. And the authorized service and cost, you are the one doing that authorization of the service and the cost. You are also inputting your decision and acknowledging yourself as the reviewer. It's going to flow into MIMS, and MIMS is going to give us a response back. Once they do, services can be delivered, and the utilization information is going to feed from MIMS as the services provided, the claim submitted, and paid. So here's the service details. And I access this in the last prior authorization screen. There is a little caret that opens up the service details screen. Now, once the prior authorization, you've done your thing, you can request clarification if it's needed. It's not a approve, deny. It's approve, request clarification, or deny. And if you request clarification, it's going to go back to the care coordinator who will receive a notification. They can make the necessary changes or provide the clarification. So let's take a look at this one in the system. I am going to change people. And I'm going to use my advanced search here. I'm going to go into care coordinator monitoring person 0. Because remember, with page done, there's not a completed PCP. So the prior authorization cannot be generated. I'm going to scroll down on that left menu to the forms. And here I'm going to scroll until I find my prior authorization. And I'm going to click to open that up.
And Lisa, not to cut you off, but just to let everybody know, the care monitors will actually receive notifications when the PAs have been auto-generated by the PCP. So you'll probably access the PAs through that notification. You likely won't have to navigate here to forms to go seek the prior authorization. Your notification will bring you directly into the prior authorization that needs to be reviewed and approved, but you can search for prior authorizations the way that Lisa just showed you. And you can even, from the forms and plans list page, you can even use the filter icon, the little upside down pyramid looking icon, to get to the custom prior authorization list page. And that will give you just prior authorizations. And that has some additional details that the all forms list page doesn't have. It gives you like the service name and the procedure code and the modifier and the prior authorization number and things like that. So it's a little bit easier to find the prior auth that you're looking for from this custom page.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and just to reiterate, here is that icon Leslie mentioned. And when I click on it, it's giving me a list of all of the forms that have been created. And I clicked on prior authorization to get this. If I had a whole bunch of prior authorizations here, I could do either a quick search for a particular one or the advanced search. Now, in the training environment, notifications are turned off. And the reason for that is there are a lot of people, potentially up to 2,500 people working in the system. There's a lot of overlap, and it would just create too much chaos if we had the notifications turned on. So that's why for everything I'm doing, I can't see a notification. I go into the forms. But to Leslie's point, you're going to get notifications that let you know this is out there. You'll access them in the notifications button on the navigation header. And when you have one that's due, you're going to have a little red circle with a number in it when you've received a new notification and it's unread. So I'm going to open this up, and here is my prior authorization. The status is in progress. And notice there's nothing I can do here. It's just in progress. I have my expand all and I have my toggle. There is not an edit button on this, but I'm going to take a look at each of these screens because I want to check this out before I do any reviewing. And I'm just going through each section. Now this is the provider information. We have here then the original request, and you can see the frequency, the units, the duration, and the total requested units. Here then is the service information, and this is the service line. It's a single service line. And again, there's information here on the date range the services can be provided, the units, the frequency, and the status right now is pending review. Well, I still need to review stuff. I need to click this little caret here, okay? And this is one of those things that when you are looking at this, you will want to read your screen. You're like, there's nothing I can do. How do I do my review? It's this little caret down at the bottom. So one of the things I'm going to suggest to you, and I don't typically suggest this, is look for buttons and push them because this is small and can be easily missed. So I'm going to click on that caret to open this up. This is the service details. The status is pending review, and here's where I will eventually submit this. I do have completion requirements here. I have to complete the authorization information and the decision. I have my expand all, excuse me, and my toggle so I can see the sections. Well, here's the service information, which came from the PCP. Here's the authorization information. Notice I have my pencil icon and my cursor turned into a pointer finger, meaning I can make changes here. So when I click and open this up, I have the requested service frequency, the units, and the rate. Leslie, will the rate automatically be pre-populated?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm guessing that maybe our service definition hasn't been loaded into your training environment, Lisa.
I think the rates may not have.
Okay. Yeah, so just for everybody's knowledge, my team has the ability to manage the service definitions here in Evergreen. So we create each service that's in waiver rule, and we pre-populate the defined rate in there. So it will just display for you. And you won't be able to edit predefined rates. You'll only be able to edit services that don't have a predefined rate. So I'm trying to think if there's like a BI one. I know like on the DD side of the house, there's like agency group home that is what's referred to as a blended rate. And so there is no like set rate in policy. So that one gets manually keyed through the UI, but for anything that has a set rate, it will just display for you and you won't need to edit it.
Right. So it'll look kind of like this total units field in that the number will be displayed, but if I tried to click on it, I wouldn't be able to make any changes. So I'm going to save this information for now. We're pretending it's all accurate. And I have another caret that showed me then all of the authorized service. Again, I can open this up and make edits if I needed to. I'm going to save it as it is. So now, within my completion requirements, I did the authorization already. So now what's left is the decision. So I come down here to the decision information, and I'm going to click Add Decision Information. And here's where my decisions can be approved, request clarification, deny. Now, approve, of course, means all is good. This is ready to rock and roll. Request clarification, if this is selected, then information needs to be input as to why the clarification is required, and it'll go back to the care coordinator. They will know about it because they have a notification, and they will be able to make the needed changes and resubmit things. So the review is needed. I'm going to say no here and save this. And at this point, oh, I want to change that. I do not want to request clarification on this. I want to approve it. So I'm saying, yes, this is approved. But notice I had made a selection and was like, oh, that's not right. So I was able to go back in and change it. And that's because this is still pending review. Now, at this point, there's a space here for MIMS response. So this is automatically going to go to MIMS. They are going to MIMS, it will come back with a response. And hopefully everything goes well. If not, if there's some sort of error, you will get information on that. Once this is fully approved, there's notifications that go out, so services can start being offered. As they are offered, as the claims are submitted through another system, once they're paid, the utilization feeds into the service authorization or the prior authorization, the service detail section, utilization, so it can be viewed. Leslie, is there anything that you would want to add about MIMS response? And I'm thinking specifically the errors, since those fields are identified there.
Yeah, I guess what I'll share is these are new data points that don't display in EIS. So currently in EIS, we have a similar process for prior authorizations. We create that prior authorization through the user interface. It flows over to MIMS, and MIMS processes that PA. And currently, sometimes those PAs don't process properly. And so MIMS will create an error because it wasn't able to either find the enrolled provider, or the provider's enrollment ended before the PA ended, or something along those lines. It's usually around like provider enrollment or eligibility of some sort that would cause them to not be able to process it. Sometimes it's also that the file might not have been formatted correctly, like the data that was sent in the file. But anyhow, it will sometimes error. And right now, we don't get to see that information in EIS. It does come back to main IT, but it's not displayed in the UI in EIS. But in Evergreen, it will display for you. It will show you what the MIMS error ID was, which is probably not going to be something that is understandable to you, but it would be understandable to somebody that manages MIMS. So if we needed to reach out to someone at Main Care Services, we could. But that's also why you're getting the error description. That's going to be a little bit more human readable or understandable. It's going to give you some sort of information about, like, you know, the provider's enrollment was not active or something along those lines. It might not be quite that explicit, but you should be able to determine based on that whether it was a problem with the provider, a problem with the person's eligibility, you know, something along those lines, so that you can then use that information to work with whoever you need to try to get that resolved. Either, you know, fix something in the system here and send the PA again, or reach out to somebody at MIMS to find out why. a provider's enrollment ended, even though you believe it shouldn't have, or something along those lines. And same thing for utilization. That's not something that you get to see currently in EIS. That's something that we thought would be very helpful to you as care monitors, and also just case managers and care coordinators and even providers to be able to see their utilization in this system as well. And that will update nightly. So as claims are paid, like Lisa said, as claims are paid in the MIMS system, that evening we'll get the updated information. And so the next morning, Evergreen will show the new updated units used and units remaining on that PA.
Thank you. And I'm going to update the status to submit it. Am I sure that I want to submit this prior authorization to MIMS? I'm going to say continue. And here I have some error messages. Now, one of them, we are not connected to MIMS. Okay, so that's part of where I'm getting this error message. You will not receive this when you go live. There's limitations in our training environment. All right, so now I want to move into the classification reclassification packet. And you've seen some other packets. You're going to see this is very similar to those. Now, the purpose of this packet determines waiver program eligibility, the classification, and the acceptance of and the enrollment of the waiver program occurs with this. This bundles all of the forms together for submission, review, and decision. This is completed annually after the initial submission. And of course, the LOC, the application packet, has to be completed. The person has to have been assigned to a slot. And of course, the PCP must be completed first. I jumped ahead a little bit. So this is what the classification reclassification form looks like. In this particular instance, this is a reclassification. Okay. Because the person needs to reapply for the BI waiver each year. Now, the workflow continues as if an initial seeking of services. However, annual is selected. So it's the same process, but instead of initial, you select annual. And you can see from the checklist example, notice this includes the HCBS choice. So let me go to a demo on this. Oops. I'm going to come to my forms. And actually on this classification reclassification packet, I am going to close this so you can see it start from the beginning. Because I can only have one form at a time that's in progress or under review. So I'm going to click the Add New Form, my application classification, and then the form is the classification reclassification packet. And I click Next on this. I need to choose the section. And this is an initial classification. Oh, see, this person is already classified. So it's asking, do I want to create an initial classification packet? I'm going to go ahead and say save. So here, this looks just like your other forms. And there's the toggle to see the sections. Here's the information on the initial classification. And here's my forms checklist. I need to add the person-centered plan. So I'm going to click link. I need to select, I need to tell Evergreen that I'm adding this, and then click link. That's how I got the link button. For the level of care, again, I'm clicking on the ellipsis so I can get the link button. And then once I'm in the link form screen, I have to click to engage the link button. Let's check out my completion requirements. They have all been met. There's no forms or attachments rather. So I'm going to submit this. Am I sure I want to submit? I'm going to say continue. So now this is pending review. And again, different hat. I'm just going to start my review. This is under review. So I'm checking everything out. My completion requirements look good. I can request clarification, clarify or close, or excuse me, request clarification, classify or close. And I'm going to go ahead and classify and identify my proposed classification date and save it. And at this point, the person is classified. Now then, I just want to show you how a reclassification form would be created. I'm going to show you this little forms icon. And I want to show you the classification reclassification packet because I can see that there's two of them here. One has been closed, so it's essentially dead. And then I have my classified item here. I'm going to look at my column select because I want to see what's active. My zoom is up very high. It's like at 125% to make sure everybody can see things. So I'm going for the active one. And here you can see there's different options I have here. Well, to start my new form, I'm going to come up here to start new form, the application classification, the classification packet, my program, and type, I'm going to select reclassification. And then I have my forms checklist. Notice the type is reclassification. And again, I would add my forms. In this instance, I have to have the HCBS choice and link that as well. So that's the classification packet in a nutshell. I want to move into now the BI assistive technology form. So we are switching gears a little bit. In light of that, Leslie, is there anything else that you would like to add because of, we've been in the space of getting the person ready or preparing to deliver services, and we're totally switching gears a little bit now.
Well, so this form, Lisa, this BI assistive technology form, yeah, you're correct. It's filled out related to one of those service authorizations, a particular procedure code. But yeah, I guess the only thing that I would add is again, Lisa's been doing a great job of providing you the high level technical training here. Like, here's the forms that you'll be interacting with or needing to take actions in, and showing you how you can find them and create them and update them and that kind of thing. But if you're, seeking some additional detail around business process or some of that more granular level of information, I would encourage you to come to the training sessions that are in early January. We have it's called Comp TCP 90-day review. So Angela Faulkner will be leading it, but I think Liz Hardink will also be participating, and it'll be sort of a joint effort there to kind of walk you through some of those more business process related details for the person-centered planning process.
Thank you. And again, to your point, yes, I do not know your business process. I know how the system works. I know what can be done in it. So when you hear those disconnects, that's why. I know the system, but not your business processes. So let me ask a question, Leslie, because you mentioned this is always associated with the service. Does the service have to be in the PCP, or can this be done independently of any service list in the PCP?
Great question. So it's associated with a service that should be in the PCP. I do not know right offhand. I'll have to pull the requirements to see if there's I don't know that there's a precondition. I think it could potentially be submitted without it being in the PCP, but it shouldn't be submitted unless it's in the PCP.
Okay. Thank you. Today, just so you know, for our purposes, pretend it is associated. So this form is used to request and receive authorization for assistive technology for persons on the BI waiver. It's specific to one service available under the waiver if the person is requesting assistive technology and there is an approved prior authorization. This form is completed to capture specifics. So there's multiple items that can be requested on a single form, and the form does have multiple sections to it. So let me show you what this looks like. Oops, I jumped ahead again. So I'm going to use my back button to return to my forms, and I'm going to do my create new form, my category, case and care plans. Okay, I chose the wrong thing. That's okay, because I'm just going to go through until I find the right thing. Service authorizations, which makes sense because it's requesting authorization for something. So it's BI assistive technology. Again, don't worry about remembering that. If you don't find it under one category, no biggie. Just start checking all the others. I'm clicking next. I'm confirming. I have one already in progress, so let me find that one, and I'm just going to open that up. So here's my form that's already in progress. I have my completion requirements here, and I can see what's required for each one. I'm going to open up my right toggle. And here I'm going to take a look at the overview. And this Evergreen knows that I'm completing this form, so it automatically populated my name and it knows the date. The request, here I need to add the request, so I'm going to click add request in that lower left corner. I need to identify the item, the information, and I'm just typing in info. The cost, this is required. I have to fill this in to be able to save anything in the screen. And I'm going to save this. I can add an additional request if I would like. And then there's funding information. Does the member have sufficient available funds to cover the cost? I'm going to just say yes today and click save. So let me check my completion requirements. I'm missing an attachment, the BI assessment. So I'm going to come up here to my attachments, When I clicked on that, I got the attachment screen on upper left corner, clicking to add the new attachment. It's the same way that you've seen me add attachments throughout our time together. Here, though, notice it also gives me an option of attaching additional supporting documents. And I'm going to click Save. Close that. My completion requirements have all been met, so I am going to submit this. And click Continue. This has been submitted, so changes cannot be made to it. And this is then going to get reviewed, and once it gets reviewed, it is completed. Oops. There was a new completion requirement added. The requested item has to have a decision. So again, you got to see how Evergreen is going to prevent you from missing something, whether it's this, or something else. It's always going to tell you what's needed. So don't worry about missing something or not doing it correctly the first time. Evergreen is going to help you out with that. Okay. Before we wrap up, we're not done yet, so don't go anyplace. I want to go over some next steps with you. So Odes is going to be providing login information to you so you can access the sandbox, or what I've been calling the training environment. When you have it, practice, practice, practice. Go in, poke around, take a look at things. Please do not work with any person except the one you've been assigned. You saw some of the people that I've worked with today. You are welcome to open up their files and take a look at it, but please do not make any changes to anything, because I do use people in different classes for different things, but you're welcome to look. There's you're going to watch for emails and watch the micro learnings a week or two before you go live. Particularly those emails are really important. You want to tie up any loose ends in the system. You're going to finalize and finish anything in progress that you can. And the reason for that is that let's get it all wrapped up in one system before we move to the other. You want to set things to complete before 5:00 p.m. on Friday, January 12th. So with all of this stuff, it really should have been said at the outset, start planning ahead. Start planning now so that when it comes to the new year, you're ready for things and you don't need to stress about it. And again, to prepare, you're going to listen to the micro learnings. You're going to play in the sandbox. There's going to be Q&A sessions the week before the deployment. So you'll want to register and attend those. There are the FAQs and recordings. These are on the project website, and Jack is going to put these in the chat for you. And on your Zoom toolbar, you have an icon that says chat. So you can open that up. You can also email questions to evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov. Jack has put that in the chat. Now that we have a course survey we'd like you to fill out. The link is the second link that Jack had put in the chat. So please click on that, open it up, take a couple minutes to fill it out. It's not difficult. It's not a lot of questions. Do it right now as we start wrapping up, because we're not quite done, as I said. Just do as you do this, do please read and make sure that you're reading the scale correctly, because the range is strongly agree to strongly disagree. And we found at times that people have selected the wrong side of the scale. And it's very evident to us based on the comments that we've received. So please do make sure you're reading that and you know which side of the scale is what. So while you complete that, Leslie, you have been so supportive and provided such great assistance. I also wanted to give you an opportunity to add any other last comments that you'd like to.
Thanks, Lisa. I want to start by just saying thank you to all of you for joining today and sticking with us through this training presentation. I know it was a lot of information, but I hope that you found it helpful. And I definitely want to reiterate a few of the things that Lisa has already shared with you throughout the presentation, just because I think they're really important and I want to underscore them. One of them being, I can't state enough how important it's going to be for you to test around in the system yourself prior to going live. So we will be sending out your individual email with the link to our sandbox training environment, the user credentials, the test credentials that you'll use to log in. I know Lisa indicated that those user accounts have more access than you will have in the production system. That's, again, to make sure that you can fill out some of these forms and move things through the process without having to call on a care coordinator or your supervisor or, somebody else to, submit a form into the next workflow or something like that. So just keep that in mind, that when you're in that training environment, you're going to have a little bit more access than you will have in the production environment. And that's just, again, to make your experience in the training environment a little bit less painful. And there will be some functions that are not turned on, like notifications. Don't worry, they will be turned on in the production environment. Some other things might not run exactly correctly either. Like you saw in this demo, your PAs, you can't actually submit those through because we're not linked up with MIMS. So it's erroring because it can't find that link to MIMS in the training environment. And it looks like maybe the service definition spreadsheet wasn't completely loaded into this training environment, but we have tested and it is in the environment that will go into production. So don't worry about that either. But yeah, just once you receive that email, you'll have a person records that's assigned specific to you. So you can do whatever you want with that person record in the training environment. You can go to the person record icon and you can add data, edit data, remove data. You can add forms, edit them, move them through the paces, just really start to familiarize yourself with how the forms work and look in the system. I think that's the bigger thing for you, is really that they might look a little bit different, but you'll find once you've added a couple of them and been through them a couple of times that they're not that different than the forms that you're currently using in EIS. It's really just about getting used to the new look and feel, but it will be really helpful for you to do that prior to Tuesday, January 16th. So we're going to start sending those emails out tomorrow. As you guys know, there are about 2,500, 2,700 end users. So we've got several people that are going to help send those individual emails, but it might take us into the beginning of next week to get them all sent out. But keep your eye out for that. And then I had mentioned a little bit ago, but there are other training sessions. If there are ones that are relevant to you specifically, I think this group might want to sign up for the one. I think it's on January 4th related to comp PCP 90-day review. Again, might be a little bit more heavily focused on the developmental disabilities side of the house, but the PCP process is very similar. So you will gain some information by participating in that one. There is another session just like this one, I believe, right, Lisa, on the calendar? Or is this the only one we did for this one?
This is the only one for this one.
Yeah, sorry. If any of your colleagues weren't able to participate in this, we did record this session and we will post it to the Evergreen Project website, hopefully early next week. So they can certainly listen to the playback, or you can listen to it again if you want to as well. And if you think of any other questions, definitely send those along to us at our evergreen.dhhs at maine.gov email address. And the I know Lisa mentioned that it will be important to complete as much work as you can in the system. I did want to just speak for this group to the prior authorizations, because that's where you're doing a lot of your activity in EIS. So the plan for prior authorizations is that we will end automatically, Maine IT will end all of our prior authorizations on Thursday, January 11th at 5 p.m. They're going to go in and automatically end all PAs, and that's going to flow over to MIMS that night. And then we will not be able to enter any PAs into the system on Friday, January 12th. We'll have to hold those until we're in Evergreen, because we need time to, after we close them, end them, we need time to generate a spreadsheet of the new PAs that are going to get created in Evergreen automatically. So whatever date range and units remained on that PA will automatically create a brand new Evergreen PA that has the original PA end date and the remaining unused units on there. So you won't need to create any PAs when you get in there, any that were already in EIS, those will get created for you, but any new ones will come through the PCP hopefully, and then you'll just review and approve those ones moving forward. So there'll be additional information about prior authorizations as well. We're going to do a deeper dive business process training session on prior authorizations as well in early January. I think that one's either it's on January 5th. So definitely sign up for that. Sorry, I'm giving you the wrong date. January 3rd. There's 2 sessions on January 3rd, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So definitely sign up for that. We'll talk more about prior authorizations there as well. But if you have progress notes or reportable events that you work on in the system, definitely try to get those completed by Friday, January 12th at 5 p.m. And thank you again for joining us. And also, we really look forward to supporting you and working with you in the new system. It's going to be exciting and lots of new cool features that we've all been waiting a long time for.
Absolutely. And just sandboxes, training environments, just so you all know, they always have limitations. Been working in a lot of different training environments, a lot of different sandboxes, different industries, different companies. There's all limitations. The important thing is you get the understanding of the navigation of the system. So with that said, Leslie, thank you so much for your input. I want to thank all of you for being here. I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.